What's going on, everybody? It's Ulysses with Snapkeep Videos, and today I have a Moto upload, my very first one actually. I'm going to be playing Boros Burn in Modern, and I'm pretty excited because I want to start making videos with Moto and stuff, and put content out that way for you guys. And I'm going to start with Burn because that's my pet deck. So this build is pretty stock as far as Burn goes. It's a list that many people are using now. It's pretty basic. It's pretty streamlined. Main board, pretty much the 20 land variant, which utilizes can't words today. Utilizes Sunbaked Canyon, which is a very good addition to Burn. It's probably the best addition Burn's gotten since Monastery Swiftspear, in my opinion. So that's a really good addition. So it's basically 7 fetches. Doesn't matter which kind of fetches, as long as they're red fetches. 3 basic mountains, 2 sacred foundries, 4 Sunbaked Canyons, and 4 inspiring vantage. So 20 lands. Usually I play 19. I mean, I play 20 lands sometimes, but normally it's 19. I've heard many Burn players say that Burn's ideal mana base should be 19.5 lands, and I feel like with these Sunbaked Canyons, it's pretty much closer to 19.5 lands than it is to 20 or 19. Anyway, the creatures is pretty much exactly the same. The only creature that sometimes he's kind of like the Y in the Vow list, he's there sometimes and he's there sometimes not, is the Grim Lavamancer creature. And he's not in this build right now. I think it's a he. Anyway, so I have 4 Goblin Guides, 4 Swift Spears, and 4 Eidolon of the Great Revel. Like I said, pretty basic. And then our 1-drop burn spells are 4 Lava Spikes and 4 Lightning Bolt. And then our 2 mana burn spells are Lightning Helix, Boros Charm, Searing Blaze. And then our honorary 1 mana lightning bolts are, 1 mana burn spells are Skew the Critics and Rift Bolt. So yep, that's the 60. And then in the sideboard, again, kind of streamlined, but it's a necessary evil right now with like things like Hogak running around. So we have 3 Path to Exiles, 2 Grafdigger's Cage, for graveyard decks, Hogak, Phoenix, things like that. And then we have 2 Core Firewalker for the Burn Mirror match and for Mono Red Phoenix. And then we have 2 Skullcracks for decks that have for Tron decks that have like Wormcoil Engine, or decks that are trying to gain life with 1 spell. Or if the matchup's like a dead matchup, like Blue Eye Control barely has any creatures. So if we want to trim on Searing Blazes or Boros Charms, or not Boros Charms, excuse me, Lightning Helixes, then we can bring in Skullcracks with some number there. Then we have 2 copies of Smash to Smithereens. A lot of decks are playing artifacts right now, more than enchantments. In the Leyline of Sanctity is not really seeing a lot of play, so we really don't need things like Cinder Vines or Destructive Revelry. So Smash to Smithereens is the very best interactive spell as far as artifacts go, with the added bonus that it does what we're trying to do. So it's basically like another Lightning Bolt. Then we have 2 copies of Searing Blood, which effectively act as copies 5 and 6 of Searing Blaze in creature matchups. Note, for those of you that aren't familiar with playing against Hardened Scales, it's kind of, in my opinion, a kind of medium card to bring in against Hardened Scales, because they just tend to sack everything to Arcbound Ravager anyway, and then this card doesn't work. It's essentially like Lightning Helix. It'll just fizzle if it doesn't have its target when it resolves, so that's something to keep in mind. And then 2 copies of Exquisite Firecraft for Blue Eye Control and any decks that play heavy counter magic. So, because, Burn, typically, if your opponent is playing a blue deck and they make it to turn 5, turn 6, they're probably going to start countering a lot of stuff. So, Exquisite Firecraft is a really good addition. And it sees play in Burn periodically, especially when blue decks get a resurgence like Blue Eye Control currently has gotten one. So anyway, that's the deck, and hopefully this video goes smoothly. I'm trying to work with OBS for the first time and all that kind of stuff that most of the streamers and content producers have already been doing for years. So hopefully it goes well, and if you guys have any tips, please put them in the comments below. And yeah, we're gonna run through a league and see how it does. So we'll see you guys here for round number 1. Alright, everybody, we're back here with round number 1, and we won the die roll, which is a very good thing when you're playing Burn. Our hand is medium. I think it's one of those hands where If you draw a second land, it's great. If you don't, it's kind of poor. But we do have 4 creatures, so I think we're going to keep this, especially since we're on the play. If we're playing against a deck with like Path to Exile, our problem is solved. We do only have 2 mana burn spells, and I mean, if we draw a land, we're in great shape. So I think we're going to keep this. Maybe we don't get maximum punish, but we'll see. Our opponent, wow, they rolled a 2 and we rolled a 1, so we got lucky there. I think they're trying to see if they're going to keep 7 cards. The new London Mulligan, I don't know if it's great for burn. It's great for other decks like Dredge and Tron, but I don't think burn mulligans well anyway. But the London Mulligan rule, I've only played a couple tournaments since it's been out. Wow, so they mulliganed to 5 cards. That's bad. I mean, good for us, bad for them. So yeah, the London Mulligan rule, I think it's okay for burn. I think it helps in conjunction with things like Sunbay Canyon. So tell me what you guys think. So we're going to shock this Foundry into play and play a Goblin Guide and get in there for 2 and probably get to see what our opponent's working with here off the Goblin Guide trigger. So Chromatic Star. Okay, so it's Tron. This hand is okay against Tron. I would love to draw another land so we can play 2 spells next turn and get in for 6. But even if we have 2 Goblin Guides, that's still okay. Hopefully we draw a land. You know, if we don't draw one this turn, hopefully we draw one next turn, and then we're going to be in great shape. So there's the star we know about. Land. Look at that. Great. Perfect. That's perfect. So we'll shock this into play. And we'll go ahead and play both of our Goblin Guides. And we'll get in for 6 here. So we have Urza's Tower, Expedition Map. Okay, so they get an Urza's Tower in the hand. I believe they have a power plant out. So, and the map. So they're gonna have turn 3 Tron. Or actually, no, they won't because they have to play the map. But I mean, I think we're still in good shape. They're at 12. It's only turn 2. So we'll see what happens here. Okay, so they cracked the star for a green. There's the tower we know about. Okay, so yeah. So they have this. They had the Sylvan Scrying, so they're gonna get turn 3 Tron. Good news is, if they get rid of one of our lands, we'll just play a Swiss Spear, unless we draw like a Bolt or something. Best news, or best case scenario, they get rid of one of our Eidolon or one of our Goblin Guides, and we're like, okay, that's fine. So we know they have an Expedition Map in hand, so we're probably just going to get in for 6 here and then play an Eidolon during our second main phase. So they're at 6. So we definitely have lethal next turn. Especially if they play like a Wormcoil Engine, it's kind of annoying. But having 3 Eidolon or 3 Goblin Guide helps against Wormcoil because that's 6 damage. They're is headed their way. So there's the mine. Okay, so I mean, they could still have Wormcoil Engine, but they're taking 2 here for casting the Chromatic Sphere. That's very good for us, which means our Rift Bolt next turn, if we draw a land, is probably going to be lethal. Assuming, of course, they don't. If they play the map, then we're in great shape. All right. Well, there's the Wormcoil Engine. That's kind of bad. But if we draw a Boros Charm, we win. Okay, so Lava Spike. I think we're still okay here. I think if we attack in, And then we Lava Spike Rift Bolt or Lava Spike Rift Bolt. I think we're fine. I'm trying to think here. If we attack with Eidolon, they're going to block the Eidolon. But then they take 6. They gain 6, so they're effectively still at 4. And then the Swift Spear plus Lava Spike is still lethal, so I think we got it this turn. So yeah, we take 2 off our Eidolon trigger. And then we'll Lava Spike them. And that'll trigger Prowess on our Swift Spear. Get in with everyone. Alright, so they have Oblivion Stone. It's a very good draw for them next turn, but I don't think they survive through this combat. I think we have Xaxes here, even with the 6 life that they'll gain off the Worm Coil. But I could be wrong. I'm still trying to wake up here. My math could be off. So yeah, they're going to block the Eidolon, freeing up the O-Stone for them to cast next turn. Maybe we should have held it back, but I don't think that would have made a difference. Yep. So, Tron. So with Tron, definitely going to bring in these some number of Path to Exiles and some number of Smash to Smithereens. And then I don't think we want Searing Blaze is pretty bad against Tron. And we can take out maybe like a Skew the Critics here, because it's our most awkward burn spell. I don't think we want anything else. I mean, Skullcrack, yeah, there's an argument for Skullcrack. So maybe if we take out if we take out 2 Lightning Helixes and replace them with 2 Skullcracks, that should be okay. And then we'll just send it back like this. Winning game 1 is really good, because if they were on the draw or on the play, they probably could have stolen game 1 from us, especially if we had if we didn't draw our second land when we did. So, all right. So this hand is, I mean, it's medium. We have 2 lands, and they both produce white. Unfortunately, they're both Sunday Canyon, so we'll be taking, it's in conjunction with these Eidolons, we could potentially be taking a lot of damage here. But I mean, I don't see a reason why to ship it, honestly. Turn 2 Eidolon. I mean, Eidolon's not great against Tron, especially when they're on the play. So maybe we should ship this hand. Yeah, you know what? Let's ship this hand. Okay, so this hand's better. We have a turn 1 play, and then we have some burn spells and 3 lands, and we only have 1 Sunday Canyon, so we don't take massive amounts of damage. Yeah, I think this is better. Of course, Tron mulligans really, really well. Like, our opponent already mulliganed to 6. We don't have Searing Blaze in our deck, so we can ship back this Mire. So they start the game with 6 cards in hand. They probably have a pretty good start if they're going to just go to 6 cards. They probably have another turn 3 Tron. That's a good sign of that. Alright. Okay, so another Skew the Critics. Play this Mountain and play this Goblin Guide. And then we'll get in there for 2. Top card is a Sanctum of Ugin, so that goes to their hand. And pass turn. Next turn we'll probably Lava Spike and Skew the Critics them, unless we draw like an Eidolon, or if we draw like another Swift Spear, or a Swift Spear. So Blast Zone is kind of annoying. Our Goblin Guide's probably not going to live next turn, so we drew another land. I think we just play the Mountain here, and do what we originally planned to. Just get in with this Goblin Guide. See what they reveal. Spatial Contortion? Oh no, okay, so they're just gonna shortcut and crack the map here and get a Tron piece. Alright. I guess that's smart, because if we revealed the Tron land, then they wouldn't know which land to go get. So they must not have. Ghost Quarter is okay. I mean, it's not that great against us right now. So we know three out of the 7 cards in their hand are lands. So we'll spike them, and then we'll skew the critics them. We effectively have 7 damage in hand, and if they spend this turn to kill Goblin Guide, that's good for us, because then we can draw another creature. Or if they don't kill Goblin Guide and we get another hit with Goblin Guide, then they're effectively at 1. So that's pretty good for us. So there's the mine that we know about. Okay. Alright, so another Goblin Guide. We can do a couple things. Let me make sure I know how Blast Zone works. So you pay 3 mana and tap it. So they can't Blast Zone this turn. So I think what we're gonna do is cast this Goblin Guide. They could have Spatial Contortion, which in that case I think that's okay for us, because they're gonna be using Spatial Contortion and Blast Zone to get rid of the other Goblin Guide. So alright, so Karn Great Creator. It's not another land. They take 4 here. We're in great shape. Oh, this is perfect. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, since we dealt damage this turn, we'll Spectacle Skew the Critics here, put them at 3, and then play the Sunbait Canyon and pass turn back, and I think we have lethal next turn. I mean, we went through a Wormcoil Engine. They would have to have something like a spell that gains them life. If they're on the back of Wormcoil Engine, it's not going to be enough, because we have this Boros Charm in hand. Alright, so force their hand. They must be flooding with lands. So they know that we have lethal on board. So we're just going to attack here and see what they do. And then if they do something crazy to gain life, we'll just Boros Charm them in response. Okay, so Blast Zone. We'll just show them the Boros Charm then. So yeah, we beat Tron. It's a good matchup, I think. You know, on the whole, whatever. But like I said, sometimes Tron just does Tron things and we just lose. But we got there. So that was match number 1. It's Ulysses with Snapcube Videos, and we'll be right back with match number 2 momentarily. Alright, everybody, we're back here with match number 2 with Boros Burn. We lost a die roll, and this hand is, it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of weird, right? Like, we have one drop creature, we have an Eidolon, and then we have 3, or technically 4 1-mana burn spells, but we don't have a second land. This is one of those hands where it's kind of risky, because if we don't draw a second land, we could get punished if we're playing against a combo deck, or a deck that can deal with our creature pretty easily, because then we pretty much are just playing one spell a turn. Being that we're on the draw, I think we're okay keeping this hand. We might get lucky and draw a land. We pretty much have 2 turns to draw a land, so I think we're fine. Our opponent started with 7 cards in hand. So Marsh Flats could indicate Mardu Death Shadow, or Mardu, yeah, I guess Mardu Death Shadow. It could be a tokens deck. We don't know yet. So we didn't draw our second land, but I think we can lead on our Goblin Guide. And I don't know if I want my, actually, I don't know. If I lead on Goblin Guide, the opponent's going to know we're on burn. If we lead on Swift Spear, they might think it's mono red prowess. So there's definitely an argument for which card to get here, but we also don't want to risk not drawing a white source. So maybe we shock here. I don't know. I'm gonna get a mountain, but it could be a wrong call. Normally you want to play Goblin Guide first, but I think in the long run, especially if we don't draw lands, Goblin Guide is a guaranteed 2 damage when it comes out. So we'll see here what happens. So we'll get in for 1. Alright, so they crack their fetch. They could have a path or a fatal push here. Godless Shrine tapped. I mean, that's good for us. They're taking damage. Or untapped, rather. They're taking damage. Alright, so a fatal push. They must think it's mono red prowess if they're respecting the Swift Spear on turn 1. Alright. Okay, so it is Death Shadow. This matchup's interesting. We definitely have a lot of burn in hand. So if we can land this Eidolon in the next turn or two, I think we'll be in okay shape. Especially since they're already at 15. Alright, so we got our second land. So yeah, we're just going to fire off this Eidolon now. Force them to deal with it. Good thing is, now that they see Eidolon, especially the main board, they know it's burn. The Inspiring Vantage gave it away. So any Thoughtseize they have in hand is probably not going to be the wisest thing to play. I mean, they're still at a healthy life total for Death Shadow, so they might get away with 1 Thoughtseize still, and they'll probably take our Goblin Guide since it's a repeat source of damage. But if they do, you know, we still have 12 points of burn in our hand, so... And we have an Eidolon that, at the minimum, is going to deal them 2 damage if they deal with it right away. Our opponent must be thinking really hard if they want to fetch in response. They have 5 cards in hand, and they have 3 cards in the graveyard. This fetch line will be 4 cards, and then if they deal with this Eidolon, that'll be 5 cards, and potentially we get a Gurmag Angler, depending if they have it or not. So... But I wrote an article about burn recently for a couple things. I put it on my Patreon page, which I'll have the link out in the description of this video for that. But I'm also part of a Magic the Gathering team, Team G&G Elite, out of Mobile, Alabama, and it's on, I believe it's on that Patreon page too, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to talk to the team captain about that. But I talk about why burn is a good choice in my opinion right now in the metagame. When Hogak gets banned, I think it'll change a bit, but for right now, I think burn's a pretty safe choice to play. I mean, it's existed since Modern began, but it's still kind of a meta deck, so. So Eidolon resolved. Still waiting on our opponent to make something happen here. You must be thinking really hard. Can't imagine they'd scoop it up this early, but you never know. Alright, so there's the path. I mean, it's good for us because we get our land. They take 2 damage. And if they want to play another spell, they have to take more damage. And I think that's good for us. So we get our basic mountain here. Next turn, we triple spell, which is a very good place to be. Because if we play this Goblin Guide, and the Goblin Guide connects, even if they play Death Shadow, unless they have some way of giving it haste, I think we win on the backswing or the next turn. So I think we're in good shape. Alright, so they must have something going on here. Perhaps a Thoughtseize. Okay, so Death Shadow, okay. So they're at 10. If we draw a land... Okay, so they're at 8. I think they're just dead next turn. Yeah, they're just dead next turn. We have 9 points of damage in our hand, and we have 3 lands because of the path. So I think we'll just go ahead and show them that we have it here. So we definitely got lucky this game. We could have gotten punished for keeping that 1-lander, but it came out in our favor in the end. And sometimes that's just how it works with burn. So one of the appeals of playing with the deck, it's very redundant. It's doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you can only lose to life gain, to your deck, to drawing the wrong half of your deck in variance, and that's pretty much it. I mean, burn is, it's one of those decks that no one really wants to play against it because it does it's like a one-trick pony. It goes straight to the face, but I mean, it's very efficient. So alright, so that was game number 1. Now for sideboarding against Death Shadow, we want to bring in our Path to Exiles to deal with the Death Shadow and any other big creature they could have, like a Bedlam Reveler, or a Gurmag Angler, or a Tassiker, or something like that. I don't think they're going to bring any artifacts in besides like Mishra's Bauble and what's the other artifact they play? Oh, Engineer Explosives. And both of those artifacts can be sacked. So this Smash to Smithereens is kind of a dead card in the matchup. We're not playing against Grixis Death Shadow, so we don't need anti-counterspell cards in this Exquisite Firecraft. I don't think we want Grafdigger's Cage. I don't think they have any kind of Hogak nonsense or anything like that. They're not playing enough red to validate this Core Firewalker, and they don't have enough creatures to validate this Searing Blood, and they don't gain life. So, that being said, I think Path is just what we want here. And what we take out against them is probably going to be... Obscure the Critics is actually better in this matchup because our opponent has a lot of fetch lands, and if they fetch during our turn, they can activate Spectacle for us. So I think Rift Bolt is probably the weakest burn spell in the matchup. So we're taking one of those out, and probably going to trim on this Searing Blazes, because we can still hit if they have like a Young Pyromancer with the tokens, or the Young Pyromancer itself. We really don't know what version of Death Shadow it is. I know it's Mardu, but I haven't played against it. I just heard that it was a thing. So we're going to try it like this and see what happens. I mean, maybe the Searing Blazes, maybe the Skullcracks are better than the Searing Blazes. I guess we can try it like that. Alright, so we'll send it this way and see what happens. So we were on the draw and we won game number 1. That's very good. It's very good for us. I'd like to point that out too. Alright. So we have a 2-lander, we have 2 Eidolon, and we have 3 burn spells. We have all of our colors. I think this is an okay hand to keep against Death Shadow. I think they have to have removal. I mean, I know they have access to Bolt and Path, playing the white splash variant in their list, and Fatal Push, so they probably have many answers to deal with this Eidolon, but it's a guaranteed 2 damage. So I don't know if this is a terrible hand. We also have a turn 1 play, and I think it's okay. I think we'll keep. Our opponent starts the hand, so I guess they liked their 7. They kept 7, so we'll see what they do. They probably took out their Thought Seizes. They might have an Inquisition on 1, which is another reason why not the mulligan, unless you absolutely have to against something with Thoughtseize in it, or a Thoughtseize like effect. Alright, so they're gonna bobble themselves. I guess they have a fetch land to see if they like what they found. I guess they like what they're going to draw now, so they did not crack the fetch land. Oh, maybe they didn't. Okay. So tapped Gala Shrine. They're definitely respecting the burn plan, so That's good for us. Okay, so we drew a skull crack. I mean, it's a burn spell, so I mean, it's not a bad draw. Alright, so we don't have Searing Blazes in the deck, so we don't have to hold up our fetch lands. So I guess we can go get a mountain here. And suspend this Rift Bolt and pass the turn back. Alright, so they have another Bobble. Okay. Alright. So they're fetching. They must not like what they saw again. They're getting a basic. Leads me to believe they might not have red in the deck. I don't think I saw a red land last turn. I'm not sure. Alright, so here's like a Thoughtseize effect. They're probably going to take the Helix or one of the Eidolons, depending on how their hand is. Or they might take the Lava Spike because it's the more mana efficient play. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I had a really long day today. I had a lot of things planned to do. I'm wearing a different shirt than I wore round one, so that tells you I had a pretty big gap between videos, or between rounds rather. So I'm hopefully gonna finish the league out before I get too tired. If not, I'll finish it first thing in the morning. But I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me, wherever you are in the world. Alright, so currently we do not have a burn spell that deals with Tidehowler Scholar other than this Rift Bolt. And when it leaves the battlefield, return the exile card to its owner's hand. So, I think because they deal damage to themselves, I don't have a problem hitting this Tidehowler Scholar here, especially since we don't have a Searing Blaze or Searing Blood in the deck. So, I think I'm okay with that. And then just play an Eidolon. And that way we get our Rift Bolt back, or our Lightning Helix back. So I'm curious, the fact that they did not take the fact that they didn't take any of the Eidolons leads me to believe that they do have removal for it. So they're still going to be taking 2 damage. So maybe the 1 point of damage isn't going to be a big difference here. Especially if they're playing 3 colors, they're going to have to fetch Shock again, or fetch at the very minimum. So I think I'm okay with that, the way I sequence the spells this turn. This might be Lingering Souls. Alright, so Purge, sure. They take 2. They might be holding up for Path or Fatal Push if they don't play another spell. Alright, so Inquisition's going to take the other Eidolon. I'm almost certain of that. Regardless, I think we're going to double spell next turn, most likely. So what they take definitely will tell me what their hand looks like for the most part. That's the thing about these Death Shadow matchups with Burn. I've heard people say different things. I've heard Shadow players say Burn is what they want to face during tournaments. I've heard them say that that's the worst matchup for them, and I've heard the same thing from the Burn side, that it's either a great matchup or a bad matchup. In my opinion, I've played both decks. I've played Burn a lot more than Shadow. I've played Grixis Shadow the most out of all of the variants, and I think that it depends on the player. Yes, it depends on the variants, because drawing bad cards, I mean, that's just the way it is. But if both players draw ideal hands and the games are really close, it goes down to who makes a mistake first. So that's what I think. So yeah, they took the Eidolon, and that must mean that they're probably light on removal, or they're worried about the repeating source of damage. So what I'm going to do is play this Lava Spike, target them, and then that'll put them to 11. And I'm probably going to suspend a Rift Bolt. let's think about this really fast. So if I suspend the Rift Bolt, next turn if we draw land, we have 6 damage. If I don't suspend the Rift Bolt, I can either Skullcrack them or Lightning Helix them at the end of turn, and then depending on what we draw next turn, we play the other 2-mana spell that we didn't play, and that'll put them to 8. And then if they're at 8, we have 6 more points, which would put them at 2. Now, if one of the 3 cards in their hand, which I'm sure it is a Death Shadow, we're helping them cast Death Shadow. So maybe what we want to do is conceal this information, especially since they don't know we have Rift Bolt, and just pass the turn here and fire off one of these 2 burn spells on their end step. Especially since these 2 are instant speed, I don't think we're in a big rush to play them anyway. So yeah, my wife and I, my mom, spent a lot of time today doing yard work and moving tree limbs and doing adult stuff. When you have a house instead of living in an apartment, you don't have to worry about grass upkeep, but when you live in a house, you kind of do. Otherwise, you are worried about snakes and whatnot. Okay, so they have a Thoughtseize. That's interesting. So they're going to take 2 damage. They probably have a Death Shadow in hand. I'm curious as to why they left this in the deck. I'm not sure. So I'm probably going to Lightning Helix them, since it's more of a mana intensive card in response. Especially since they targeted the Lightning Helix with their Tidehauler Scholar. They're probably going to take the Skullcrack, or they'll take the Rift Bolt. But they're also going to be at 6. So if they take any of these spells, they're probably going to take the Skullcrack, because that'll be less likely that I double spell next turn. Yeah. So now I have to either hardcast this Rift Bolt. There's the Shadow. Oh, okay, double Shadow, okay. So they're swinging for 14 next turn, unless I do anything. So what I'm probably going to do is suspend this Rift Bolt and let them attack. If they go down to, see, a Thoughtseize will put them down to 4. That'll make the Shadows 16 power. I don't have instant speed burn to kill them, so what I'm gonna do is suspend the card they know I have and pass the turn, allow them to attack, and then if they don't do anything else, next turn they're dead. They might have another Thoughtseize, they might draw another Thoughtseize, I mean, we don't know. So I guess we just play to our outs. Don't have to worry about a Battle Rage. I don't see any red anywhere. This might just be an Orzhov Shadow list. Okay. Yep, no blocks, friend. I'm at 6. They also might have Faith Shield or some sort of white card to prevent damage. So they don't have anything. We won, but I can't see them not having anything. Okay, so if this Scare the Critics gets countered, we're going to game 3. If not, the game is ours. Or I guess I don't need, doesn't matter because we're going to be dead anyway. I guess I can just cast this Respectacle. Did we get there? Yep. Okay, so they didn't have anything. So we got super lucky there. Faith Shield is a card that I play in a Zoo Shadow list that a friend of mine found on the internet, and she told one of our other friends, and now he and I are playing the deck, and he's doing really well with it. He's like 35-2. I, on the other hand, had a pretty bad tournament the first time I played it, but I've been practicing it. It's all about fetching lands and all the way Suicide Zoo used to be. But Faith Shield is a very, very good card in a Death Shadow build. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's fantastic. It's out of Dark Ascension, I believe, and it has Faithful Hour, and it says if you have less than 5, our opponent says punted so hard, drew the win. Our opponent said they punted. They drew the win. It sucks when that happens, but that's part of the game. But yeah, Faith Shield has Faithful Hour, and it says it's 1 mana instant, 1 white. It says I believe it says if a player, if you were to take damage, prevent damage of a single source that targets you until the end of the turn. But if you have 5 or less life, prevent a damage that's done to you or target permanent you control, period. So in Shadow, you're probably always going to be below 5 anyway. So, but anyway, that was match number 2 against a Orzhov Death Shadow. We are 2-0, and we'll be back with match number 3 in a little bit. Alright everybody, we're back with round number 3. We won the die roll, that's good. Okay, so our opening hand is, again, one of those awkward hands where it could be great or it could be kind of bad. We have 2 Swift Spears, which is good. It's really good. 1 land. So, again, I mean, I think we're okay. We're on the play. We have a way of interacting. So, I think we'll be okay. All we have to do is draw 1 more land. Our opponent, I think our opponent's trying to decide whether they want a mulligan or not. Alright, so they start with 7 cards in hand. Swift Spear. Get in there for 1. Alright. Let's see what we're playing against. Verdant Catacombs, okay. Might be Hogak. Or Jund. Alright, definitely Hogak. So if we draw a land, that's okay. We didn't draw land. They're definitely going to block. So I think that we just run out this Goblin Guide. They're probably not going to block that way. I think it helps guarantee a turn 2 Hogak. Yeah, that's what I thought. A land would have been really good there. That way we could have Searing Blazed the Stitcher Supplier. And now if they have another creature, then Hogak is most certainly probably going to be their play. Yep. There's a Carrion Feeder. Yeah, a lot of people say if you're not casting Hogak on turn 2, you're not Hogaking correctly. So, it's a testament to that. It's pretty easy to have that happen. Ooh, and a Vengevine. Okay. That's pretty bad for us. Yep, so we're at 16. Okay, still didn't draw our land. That's not good for us. I don't think we can win this game. Opponent still has 4 cards in hand, and we don't have another land. We have a bunch of burn spells that take a couple turns to go off, and our opponent's only at 13. So, so we put them to 10. Next turn we're taking... They're just gonna dredge. Only have another Hogak in case we get rid of. Yeah, I think we're done here. I mean, we can try to keep going, but I don't think this game's gonna pan out. We'll just go to sideboard. I think this matchup's okay for us. I think Burn has an okay matchup against Hogak. I've been saying that since Hogak's been the boogeyman of the format. I think I've only lost to Hogak with Burn once, and it was because I drew really, really badly. So, definitely want these Grafdigger's Cages. Definitely want some number of paths. Let's see, what else? They don't really gain life, so that's not a really big card to bring in. So, I think we shave on some number of... I don't think Eidolon's very good. Yeah, I don't think Eidolon's very good because, yeah, they cast a bunch of small stuff, but they're looking to bring a Hogak on too, and if that's the case, I mean, I don't think that's the best turn 2 play for us to do, so I think we'll try it like this. Let's see what happens. Yep, I would love to play first. Alright, so this hand's okay. I mean, we have our double Swift Spear. We have 2 lands. We're probably not going to play 2 Swift Spears unless they don't play... If they play like a Faithless Looting on one. But we probably want to Searing Blaze their first creature so that we can do maximum damage. So that'll probably be what we do. Then we have a Boros Charm for 4 damage, Lightning Helix. So, I mean, this is a good burn hand. This is, some people would say this is a great burn hand. Against Hogak, that remains to be seen. And our opponent, I believe... yep, they start with 7 cards in hand, so they must have a pretty good hand to start with 7. And yep, that's all we can do. Pass turn back. Okay, so there's the looting. We also don't have a fetch land, so holding up our land, well, we're not going to do that, but let's say holding up our land would have been a play. We can't do that because we won't be able to Searing Blaze their creature anyway. So now that, especially now that we drew this Goblin Guide, we're definitely going to double creature here. This might be a critical turn to put enough damage on the board, or deal enough damage to them and put enough combat power on the board that they can be struggling to turn the corner because of us being on the play and the kind of draw that we had with all these creatures. So there's a Bloodghast. It's definitely a Searing Blaze target, and it can't block, which is really, really good for us. So they're at 15. We effectively have... Okay, so there's our Stitcher Supplier. They must be dry on lands. Oh, no, there's the land. Okay, so they were trying to maximize the amount of Bloodghast that would come back. Makes sense. So it's a fetch land. That's good because that's more damage that they're taking. We're gonna definitely Searing Blaze if we draw a land. Searing Blaze the Stitcher Supplier. If not, we're probably going to Lightning Helix it and then get in for a bunch of damage. Oh no, here comes Hogak. I probably have one in hand. Yep. There it is. If we draw a path, that'd be really good right now. Nope. But we did get a land. So, Searing Blaze is online. We're probably going to Searing Blaze the... Let's see. If we attack, that's 3, 4, 5. That's not enough to kill Hogak. We Searing Blaze the Stitcher Supplier. One of the Swift Spears is going to get in. That's 3, putting them to 11. 2, putting them to 9, and then the 2 from the Goblin Guide, putting them to 7, and then we have 7 burn in hand. I think I'm okay with that. And we're at 19. So that'd be 11, 9, 7. So we'd be at 7, which means if they have like a Vengevine, that's bad. Lightning Helix is a good I think we're gonna Searing Blaze the Stitcher Supplier. If we had another 1 mana burn spell, it'd be really good, because then we would get 1 more point of damage in with our Swift Spear that's not going to be blocked this turn. But that's not what we have. So, all right, so they're at 11. Stitcher Supplier is going to trigger. So they have Blackleaf Cliffs and 2 Faithless Lootings in the yard. Okay. Now we're gonna attack. Goblin Guide's gonna reveal another Stitcher Supplier. Okay. So they block us with Spear. They're probably respecting another 1 mana burn spell, because if they block the Goblin Guide and we have a Lightning Bolt, they're dead. Alright, so next turn, if we draw a land, they're dead. If we draw a Lightning Bolt, they're dead. If we draw a Lava Spike, they're dead. So we definitely have plenty of outs. We're probably going to take a lot of damage this turn, because they already have 12 power on board. So if they have a way of dealing 6 more damage. So if they get a couple Vengevines in the yard right now, it's probably the only way they win. Regardless, I think we played this game super well. Both games, actually. Maybe the only mistake I made game 1 was keeping the hand that I kept, but let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Alright, so another Hogak, an Insolent Neonate, and a Satyr Wayfinder. So far, no Vengevine. These creatures cannot block, so they're gonna attack. There's no reason to hold them back. And they might send in the Hogak as well. They might not. And the fact that we do have creatures on board is really good for us, because that means they have to respect the fact that we do have a creature attack. And just leaving back this 1 Stitcher Supplier may not be wise, but we'll see. Yep. Okay, so they're gonna come in with Hogak and Bloodghast. It's gonna effectively put us at 8, which means we are going to have to do something big here, otherwise we'd be dead next turn. Because now these Bloodghasts have haste. Okay, so Hogak for blocking, it's gonna get rid of this one. Now that would trigger. Okay, so there are no Vengevines. Sorry about that. Somebody was at the door and I had to go get it. Anyway, so we drew our burn spell, so it's game, unless they have some sort of interaction. So we're gonna add a white, or a red and a white. Deal this Boros Charm to them. And now we skewer the critics. And that's why this card's a really good addition to burn, because it makes these kind of plays clutch. Because, you know, if you draw something else that requires 2 mana exclusively, then that play would never have worked. So I think we want to bring in this third path on the draw. Probably take out. Even though it was really good in the matchup, we probably want to take out 1 Skewer the Critics for this Path to Exile. And I think that's all. Alright, so this is game 3. Our hand, it's a lot of damage. How does this stack up against a turn 2 Hogak, though? I don't think it stacks up very well. We don't have a Grafdigger's Cage. We don't have any path. I don't think this is a keep. We do have 18 damage in hand, but with a deck like Hogak, we might not have a chance to fire off all of this burn. I think we have to ship it back. As appealing as this hand is, I think we have to ship it back. Alright, so this hand is significantly worse. And they start with 7 cards in hand. That's not good for us. So this is definitely when they click. Oh no, wait a minute. Oh no, I'm sorry. They did mulligan down to 6. So they're trying to decide whether they want to keep 6. We are not. So yeah, as you guys saw, you know, he did technically have a really early Hogak, and we were still able to get there. So Burn is one of those decks that can contend with Hogak. All right, so we're definitely keeping this hand because we don't want to go any lower than we have. They're starting the game with 6 cards in hand. We have 3 lands, so we're gonna put back a land in probably one of these helixes. So in Helix and a mountain. And we'll start off with Goblin Guide. They're probably going to do either Faithless Looting or Stitcher Supplier. Alright, fetch land, that's good. It's those Blackleaf Cliff starts that help, because that's essentially 3 damage that they're saving against Burn anyway. Against other decks it might not matter, but against Burn it's definitely one of those starts that helps them. So unfortunately our Goblin Guide is not going to connect on 1. Alright, so there's the Hogak, and we do not have any Piece of Graveyard Hate, which is not good. I might have to put Rest in Peace in here, but then again, I don't know how much of a difference that would have made because we still didn't see any of our Graveyard Hate. So, so we shock this in. We still have to do our game plan. I know that it's kind of like stopped with this being out because it's going to block it, but we really don't have a choice here. And sometimes that's the way it happens. I mean, you do everything correctly and it still doesn't work, but that's part of why Magic is so good. Okay, so they didn't block. I'm curious as to why they didn't block. Maybe it's because they're trying to cast Hogak on 2. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, because they can't. They would know. There'd be no way for them to. I mean, I don't know. They could have convoked enough, but then again, can't cast mana. You have to have a creature. So yeah, that's right. All right. So they have more than enough creatures to bring back this Hogak this turn. If we don't draw a path, we're in serious trouble. Yep. So they're at 12. Okay. So they pretty much have the ground game blocked off. That's not going to be an option for us anymore. There's Hogak. Alright. So our turn 2 play looks a lot less intensive as theirs. Next turn we're going to take a buttload of damage. So we're not attacking with this Goblin Guide at all. So probably our play, we will get a mountain to start off with. We're probably going to get a mountain and hold up this lightning helix. And then when they attack, probably we'll block the Stitcher supplier, and that means we'll take 1, 3. That's still a lot of damage. If we block the Hogak, we take 6, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that still puts us at 6, and there's no way that we can kill them from 9 unless we... Not sure what to do here. If we Boros Charm them to put them at 8, and the next turn this would put them to 5. And then if we draw a land, this would put them to 2. But if we suspend this Rift Bolt, that'll put them to 9. Next turn they'll be at 9, and then that'll put them at 6. And if we draw a land, yeah, I think we're a turn too slow, just because of how good this start was from them. So Helix is probably the biggest life buffer we can do, and that's probably the best play to do. But part of me thinks we should just Rift Bolt Lava Spike here, because we're not going to be able to play this later. It's a very, 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 very interesting line. I think might be overthinking it, but suspend this Rift Bolt. We'll put them to 9 next turn, and then yeah, I think we just wait. If we Boros Charm them at their end step, they're going to be at 8, and then they'll effectively be at 5. But if we draw a land, that's best case scenario, they'll be at 2. So maybe they fetch Shock here for whatever reason. Or fetch or Shock, or one of the two. That would be really good. That would help our math a lot. Sometimes, well, this kind of situation is what makes a card like Deflecting Palm so appealing, which is probably why it's seeing more play now. So they got a basic to play it safe. Alright, so there's a Satyr Wayfinder. They're gumming up the board pretty hard now. Alright, so they're going to get an Overgrown Tomb. Alright, so we know about that. What's this? All right, well that's not good for us. That means we're not soaking up 2 points of this damage. So, I don't think we want to save it with the Boros Charm. That's not going to help. So now we're going to take 1, 2, 3, 11 damage. Well, this blood gas, I think, yeah. So 12 damage, putting us at 5. We would gain 3 to put us back to 8. Okay, so they're holding these back. Okay, I don't see why, but okay. There's no sense in Lightning Helixing their creature, even though we'll be saving damage. I don't think there's a reason to do that because they're at 11. So I'm going to Lightning. Oh, wrong color. I'm going to Lightning Helix them. Alright, so now we take 10, go down to 10. I think we still lost this game, but sometimes that's what happens. Alright, so there's another Helix. I don't think that's good enough because they have ample amount of power on board. We would definitely have to Helix one of their creatures. So 14 power on board, gaining 3 life just puts us at 13. We would have to kill one of their creatures and that would buy us another turn, which would do nothing for them. So yeah, I think we're just dead here. Yeah. So that'll do it. Alright, so we lost to Hogak. I don't think there's anything else we could have done. I think we mulliganed. Maybe our mulligan choices weren't the best, but we were definitely on the play. We had a mediocre hand. We didn't draw another land, so that hurt us. So I think that's what hurt us in this game. I think the game was still really close. I think we just dominated, or not dominated, but we did really, really well game 2, just because of how our deck, you know, the power and the lines that it can produce against a deck like that. And I mean, I don't know what else to say much about that matchup. I think that matchup is good for burn, but I think because of variance and, you know, other reasons that are part of the game, I think sometimes you just lose that matchup. But this has been Ulysses with Snapkeep Videos. That was round 3. I will be right back with round number 4.